lot of things to watch. And the thinking longer term, it was going to be less about how much people watch and then the kind of uniqueness of what they watched. So if all the companies who did streaming had the same programming, that's all that would happen is that we'd all fight it out over price and we'd all go out of business. So we had to really distinguish ourselves from other people. And the content that we had nobody would care how much content we had, they would care how important it was to them. So that we had to create license and create content that was unique to Netflix. And when we started out at the beginning, we didn't have enough subscribers to support the economics of it. And then once we got to about 25 million streaming subscribers, we could invest in things on a really large scale. And our first kind of attempt to do that was House of Cards. And we had a meeting with David Fincher, I think one of the greatest directors of all time, who had this idea for a TV show. And it was a show that I had seen before. It was a very popular TV show in England in 1990 called House of Cards, with Francis Underwood, but a very different Francis Underwood. And we took a big bet with him and gave them a 2-season order to do 26 episodes of the series without even making a pilot. And I think changed the kind of shape of television forever after that day. And after that, before the show came on, we did a second deal for a show with Stevie Van Zandt called Lilyhammer that was made for Norwegian television, but we were releasing it everywhere outside of Norway. And it was a show half in Norwegian and half in English. Then it became very popular. And it was a kind of an interesting thing then because I thought, wouldn't it be great if you could have a show that would actually work everywhere in the world and overcome language barriers, because I think storytelling is really just about human interaction.
Yeah, and especially now since Netflix has reached to not only America but so many other countries.
Right. So to do a show that's actually in 2 languages, if you could do Norway in English, you could do any other combination for sure, because Norway's a super complicated language. And then after that we did Orange's Arrested Development, which was a wildly popular show that had a huge cult following that wasn't quite big enough for you're one of them. Wasn't quite big enough for network television to sustain, but people stayed in love with the show for a long time. So after 6 years off the air, we brought it back last summer and created a whole new season of original episodes, and people loved it. And then Hemlock Grove, which is kind of a Eli Roth directed and produced gothic horror story with vampires and werewolves and gypsies, and that's now we're getting ready to launch its 2nd season. And we have Derek with Ricky Gervais, which is a very sweet British comedy about a special needs guy who works in a nursing facility, who is very, very sweet and very, very funny. So we really love the show a lot. And we have lots of new shows in production right now too.
So basically you could be interested in anything and find what you like on Netflix. You've really reached out to every demographic and every genre, really. So.
Well, the core of Netflix is that it's personalized, right? So the things that you see and what matter to you may not matter to others. So the core of it, like when you have a lot of choice, what you really want to do is how do you find things that are going to be relevant to you? So we do this very sophisticated personalization of the website and the TV. And when you see it on the TV or when you see it on your device, it's already kind of pre-selected for you the things that you'd be most likely to love based on the things you already like. And because of that, we have to do really broad things. So we do comedy and drama and horror. And most of the people who watch Hemlock Grove don't watch House of Cards at all. And that would be a disaster for some networks. But for us, it's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Because when I started watching Netflix, I would watch one movie and then after I finished it, it would say, give me a category of other things that I might like to watch. And so that's kind of kept me, watching each episode and TV show and whatever.
Yeah. But we
Netflix
think
has
that the
to offer.
personalization is so important.
Definitely.
That we want to be careful that any of our shows, even though they're by a lot of people think they're really great. We have over 100 nominations and awards for our first wave of shows, and Oscar nomination, Emmy nominations, Emmy wins, Golden Globes.
Yeah. And you changed.
Just going to the Peabody Award for Orange Is the New Black and House of Cards.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You even changed Oscar history by having the first documentary on a streaming internet. The Square is the documentary.
The Square,
So you changed Oscar history with that nomination.
Yeah, and we just did our first animated series for kids called Turbo, and we just got the nomination, for daytime Emmy nomination for best animated programming. So it's like
Congratulations.
everything we've got done, we try to do the best version of whatever that is, and then find the audience for it.
Yeah. And so going back to your original series, you have what's the process in your distributing of the original series? Because I know that on Netflix, because I am a very big fan of House of Cards, as I've told you before, but it comes out as a whole each season, not, whereas on TV each episode comes out, weekly or whatever, but you on Netflix come out with the entire season. So what is the whole process? And
well, remember
idea?
when I said earlier about choice and how do you do things differently than other people, than other businesses? So we wanted, what can the internet bring to television that's better? And one of the things that people really, as much as it's a fun process of kind of sitting at the edge of your seat waiting for next week's episode, I think it was becoming more and more out of step with everything else you did in your life. So when you want an answer, you go to Google and you type in the question and you expect it to give you an immediate answer. So the internet has given us kind of instant gratification of the things that we want. So we thought, how can you do that for television? It's to not make you wait until next week to see what happened. To just keep going.
Watch each episode.
And if you have 3 hours, watch 3. And if you can't, get to sleep that night, just keep going. And, so you have this thing where we were trying to figure out how many episodes to offer at once. What we knew was nobody watched anything on Netflix one episode at a time. All of our shows were full series shows that had been on television a year before. And everybody watched like you're talking about binge watching, where they would watch, 2 or 3 episodes at a time. So I didn't want to do is say, hey, we have this great new show and it's less convenient to watch than everything else on Netflix. So we just said, let's try it. And we put them all up at once, and people really responded great. A small percentage of very diehard people starting at midnight when that show came on watched the whole thing 13 hours straight through. And then everybody else did all different flavors of it. 2 episodes here, 3 episodes there.
Which is the way to do it, because then you have to wait for the next season to come out.
Yeah, exactly. Then unfortunately, we haven't figured out a way to close that gap yet. So now you still have to wait for between seasons, but not between episodes.
No, which is very, very smart.
We're doing another thing that's really interesting right now in our international expansion is outside of the United States, most of the television that gets watched is shows from the United States. And usually there's a long history that foreign television would wait a year or so to see if a show was going to be a hit before they bought it. So now enter the internet, everybody knows all about, these big shows, Walking Dead, Mad Men, and there is typically at least a year wait before that show will be available where you live. So what we're trying to do now, beyond our own original shows, there's shows like Fargo and From Dusk Till Dawn, and Better Call Saul, which is the spinoff of Breaking Bad, that we're going to make available to the rest of the world the day after it's available in the U.S. instead of the year after. So that's another big change in how the business works.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you really have made Netflix its own network, which is...
Yeah, and it's a network, but usually networks have a personality. Like Comedy Central is meant, for a very specific, audience with very specific shows.
Yeah.
We have to be kind of that for everybody at the same time. And that's where the personalization technology comes in.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what does the future of Netflix have in store? Where do you see Netflix going?
I think we're just scratching the surface of where it could be. I mean, we've got, if you look at the television market, the United States is half the world. If you look at the broadband market, it's much smaller, meaning the opportunities are much larger for entertainment on the internet. So the idea of being much more global and much more original in terms of how many shows that we have. We'll have almost a doubling of how many original shows Netflix has just in 2 years. I think that's very feasible to double again, and keep pushing the envelope in terms of how great stories get told and how shows get to television. I'm particularly proud of something like Orange is the New Black, which is a show that is full of people who you typically don't see on TV. You see even on Derek as a mentally challenged character, which you never see in the lead of a TV series. Orange is the New Black, where you see women, a lot of women on television, which is also not done very often. Women of color, women of many different sexual orientations and very different sizes. So there's not like a cookie cutter of casting that we do. We really try to get rid of all the conventions of television and find out what people really want. And we see Orange is the New Black has been a great success story around that.
Incredible. And so what do you think is the most important thing that you've learned throughout this entire process of your journey, and also, you know, in your position now and what you learn every single day?
There's a couple of things. I think that the reason why we've been able to make so much change so fast is we're doing it from a place of real love for the programming. So it's not just like, you know, these shows aren't just widgets for us that, you know, we're just not just moving things from point A to point B and charging for it. We're really love the movies and TV that we offer. We love matching, you know, when an audience really connects with something in a way that they can't stop talking about it, or in a way that keeps them up in the middle of the night because they can't stop watching the show. Those are cool human, you know, connections that you have. And I think that the more you know about people who are different from you, the better the world's going to be over time. So by introducing different places, different people, that I think we'd be, you know, in a small way, hopefully making improving the quality of life around the world.
Even bringing the two languages together, which...
Yeah, I mean, I knew nothing about life in Norway until I started watching that show. So and I think the same way where you can create great empathy for others by exposing them to other worlds. So I think that's a cool thing. I think it's also important that you know, that the passion, why that matters is, I know a lot of people who have done things for money and have never done terribly well at it. But if you do it because you love it, you won't be able to help but make money, because you'll be so successful because you're doing the thing you love every day. So it's really important that you stick with both find your passion and match it up with your skill. So, you know, it wouldn't work if your passion was, you know, if my passion was, you know, playing basketball because I'm way too short. So I had to find something.
I know what you mean.
So I had to find something that I loved and that I was pretty good at. So
yeah. So also, what advice do you have, even though that was very good advice, what additional advice do you have for kids or people in general who are aspiring to be in the entertainment world?
Well, I think that it's important. There's a lot of people who, I hear the word a lot, saying I want to be in the entertainment, but I think it's really important that I want to work in entertainment. And the work is the important part, which is that when you're into a business where a lot of people want to be in it because it seems fun and glamorous and sexy, and all those things are true, but it's really a lot of work. And the people who, when I visit the set for House of Cards, the thing that I'm always taken by is that there's a handful of people who are performing and in front of the camera, but behind the camera, it's electricians and carpenters and recording engineers and the driver who gets you from the airport to the set, and the people who work in the hotels where you have to stay when you go to these sets. So the economics of these shows and the impact that they have on a society are very big. So it's the industry, like all industries, are looking for people who are willing to work really hard.
Yeah.
And that's why you really want to find people who are passionate about it, because the hours are long.
Yeah.
And
even though a show, or any show, but a show like House of Cards may seem effortless, there's so much work and effort that goes into the making of that, not just from the actors and producers, but from the people who work behind the camera too.
I mean, if you think about it from an idea, which every one of us have an idea, you know, several times a day, but to be able to take something that's just an idea and then put together all the people and all the resources required to take that idea and make it into a script and make it into an hour of television and then into 26 hours of television, and then having millions of people watch it. I mean, it's mind-boggling, the idea, and the idea that happens over and over and over again.
And that it's majorly successful.
Yeah, and it's a real testimony, I think, to to the human spirit. That people work hard and come together around a common vision and then share it with the world. So.
Yeah, and so I am so happy that you came today, and thank you for joining my show. And that's all we have for today. So
well, thank you for having
Ted
me.
Sarandos.
Thank you.
Thank you. How Hollywood Works.
Hi, I'm Ted Sarandos, and you're watching KBEV.